Well, H.C. Weaver was an independent movie producer who had the great idea of making independent films in Tacoma, Washington during the 20s. Once the studio was built on this 5-acre parcel at Titlow Beach Road, 1600 Titlow Beach Road, as a matter of fact, there was also some adjoining bungalows built. The hotel that was across the street, which we call the Lodge now at Titlow Beach, was actually a hotel at that time. It was like capitalization. Okay, let's capitalize on this film studio being here. And they actually drew up a plan, and we have some drawings of that, of Hollywood by the Sea. And it was no doubt going to be envisioned as the Northwest Hollywood. And why wouldn't it be, right?
Silent film was a rage. There were many other cities in the United States that were also looking to start up a film production studios, and Tacoma was unique in that they had a successful one.
Talking to local historians and museums, they said that Tacoma had a film studio in the 1920s down by Titlow Beach that filmed 3 films, and they were all lost since the 1920s. And a lot of research had been done, but no one had ever been able to track them down. So I started researching under the director's name and found out that Eyes of the Totem still existed at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City.
We now think that probably 1 out of maybe 10 of the thousands of silent films that were made actually survive and are viewable today. So when something like this comes along, where it's discovered that a fragment or some bit and you can view it again, it really is something to celebrate. And then when the extraordinary thing happens and you have the opportunity to see an entire feature film, to see the entire work of the artist of their day, it really is amazing. It was a core of people in the community that are already one way or another involved either in history or involved in film as an art form. And so the Team Tacoma, the group that have kind of been working on this, is sort of a balance between historians, kind of academic historians, and then people from our film community and our film history community.
Films at the time were hand cranked, the cameras were hand cranked, and as a result, anytime a film was made, there would be a variation in speed, not only because of who was cranking it, but also how they were being directed and told what to do. So as a result, there's a lot of variation in silent film in terms of frame rate. And when we watched the film the first time, a number of us were a bit concerned about the frame rate that we saw it being displayed, which was at 24 frames per second. Since we're the ones showing the film, we're kind of like the projectionist of old. We have the opportunity to slow the projector down or speed it up because the film's in our hands and we're showing it, and the director's not here to tell us what speed. So we came to the conclusion that this film was probably best viewed at about 19 frames per second, which is, I think, what the cameraman probably cranked it at.
The main restoration, it should be noted, is more of a musical restoration. So it's more about finding a time code to set in place so a composer can write an original score for it.
Well, film music is a very interesting topic. Because of technology, music was being performed live through the late 20s and a little bit into the early 30s. And that's the era that this movie is in. But even in that period, if you study film music from the late 19th century, the 1890s through the end of the 20s, even that was a period of immense growth in the way that scores were treated and performed. If there was an original score for this movie, it has not survived, to my knowledge, and that would be typical. My guess is that it was left to the discretion of each theater. And so what would happen in the silence back then is, say for what I'm calling Miriam's theme, Miriam is the female lead in the movie, the cue sheet might have said lament. And so then the performer or performers would just choose hey Harry, let's do that number 27 lament. I really like that. And there you go, there's your answer. So there really is no score. The movie industry was evolving very rapidly, even through the 20s. Scores were starting to become more affixed to the movie than they were earlier. It was changing really rapidly. So it is possible that a theme might have been played by a 30-piece orchestra, say for a particular movie, on maybe a 30-piece orchestra, and then in a smaller city, the same theme would be performed as a piano reduction. That was starting to happen too. But the whole industry changed when talkies came in. I find myself, as I've gotten very familiar with it, and I need to be, is I've seen things, I know what W.S. Van Dyke is after here, and I'll look at maybe something that's in minute 12 of the movie, and I'll immediately think, wait a minute, I need to go back to minute 37, and I need to watch that again. I want to watch these both back to back. And I found myself pulling up double copies and watching back to back, boom, boom, boom. So it's that kind of becoming as intimate with the story as I could possibly pull off. I think we've really seen some artistic liberties being taken with silent films in the last, say, 10 years, just to pick something. It's not, to quote a friend of mine, they're not being treated like museum pieces. They're being treated as living art for us to enjoy today, but to be appropriate. Now that's subjective, but to be appropriate. So the how is very varied. It's understanding, having a good sense and respect of music history, but I also want to tell the story from the director's point of view for a modern audience. And I'm trying to achieve both those things.
Well, this movie is really a historic artifact because it shows some great historic areas in the city of Tacoma, such as Pacific Avenue, the Winthrop Hotel, Annie Wright, all along Pacific, and some of the Titlow Beach area.
It's a unique historical document that just gives us this amazing experience of sitting in a theater and watching our city that we recognize go before our eyes, moving with people and streetcars and everything 80 years before. There can't be more than a handful of people in Tacoma that ever saw that site during their lifetime that are still alive today, and there we are looking at it. So just amazing experience.
It's pretty exciting to know that the icon of the film is still here and available for our ogling and respect. It is an exciting window into the past, and done professionally. It's a quality film. It's a fun story, as far as melodramas go, and it's got an action-packed ending with romance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great for the whole family.